Welcome, forward-deployed engineers and tech professionals, to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into mastering your positioning. We're going to break down exactly how you can instantly stand out in a ridiculously crowded market. And honestly, it comes down to doing one incredibly simple thing: completely tossing out all that marketing fluff in favor of concrete, undeniable operating truth.
So here is our blueprint for the day. We'll kick things off with the 12-second hire, move into the one-sentence FDE thesis, unpack the 5-dimension rubric, compare marketing tone versus operating truth, and finally, wrap it all up with the Mastery Studio process. It's a packed agenda, so let's get right to it.
Starting right off with Section 1, the 12-second hire.
Okay, I want you to picture this. Imagine a hiring manager at a fast-moving 350-person AI consultancy. She's staring at 11 different 5-minute video pitches from candidates for a senior FDE role, and she's got maybe 15 minutes to spare for the whole batch. As she's watching, the first 8 candidates are all just sort of clustered at this mediocre 5 or 6 out of 10. Why? Well, because they are literally all using the exact same buzzwords. They're calling themselves experienced, cross-functional, and comfortable with ambiguity. To her, they just blur together, they're totally vague, completely interchangeable, and honestly incredibly easy to skip over.
But then candidate number 9 pops up and opens with this hyper-specific hook. They literally start by saying, "I'm the FDE who picks narrow paths in regulated industries. My strongest persona is the strategist, my weakest is the engineer, and my companion OS is open right now if you want to look at it." Boom. The manager stops the video at exactly 12 seconds. She immediately scores a point on her rubric before this candidate even takes their next breath.
Which brings us right into Section 2, the one-sentence FDE thesis.
So you're probably wondering, what exactly did that 9th candidate do to hook that manager so incredibly fast? Well, it all comes down to the FDE thesis. This is a single-sentence forcing function that compresses your entire operating frame into a 30-second categorization. Positioning expert April Dunford often points out that a standard positioning statement is usually just marketing, but a thesis? A thesis actually proves you are an operator. It's the specific, undeniable truth you tell the second you walk into a room.
A working thesis does not leave any room for interpretation. You have to specifically nail down these 5 elements across distinct clauses. First up, your strongest and weakest Trinity persona. Second, your maturation and life cycle stages. Third, your narrow path bias. Fourth, your ownership default. And finally, the exact location of your companion OS evidence. And here's the absolute kicker: you cannot hide your weaknesses. You have to state them openly and confidently.
All right, moving on to Section 3, the 5-dimension rubric. Now, this is the precise instrument that our hiring manager was using to score candidate number 9. It's the FDE Trinity rubric, and it maps directly back to those 5 dimensions we just talked about: Trinity stance, operating posture, narrow path bias, ownership default, and companion evidence. Each of these gets strictly scored. It's a 0 if it's completely missing, a 1 if it's present, or a 2 if it's highly specific. And remember, this is based entirely on hard, observable evidence. Absolutely no scoring based on vibes here.
So, what's the magic number? It's 7. To actually pass this mastery gate and prove your operating frame to a panel, you must achieve a cut score of 7 out of 10.
But wait, there is a massive catch here. You cannot have a single dimension score as 0. Getting an 8 out of 10, but having 1 0, that is not a pass. That 0 acts as an automatic remediation signal. It essentially means a core pillar of your operating frame is completely missing, and it points you straight back to the drawing board.
Let's look at how this plays out in the real world in Section 4, marketing tone versus operating truth.
To truly see this rubric in action, let's contrast a failing pitch against a perfect operating thesis. Take a look at Thesis A. Notice how it relies entirely on empty adjectives? Words like passionate, cross-functional, and scalable. Let's be real, that is pure marketing fluff. Now compare that to Thesis C, the operating truth. It relies on concrete verbs. It explicitly names their weakest persona, the engineer, and it references hard artifacts, like their Polaris narrowpath diagram. See the difference?
And this brilliantly illustrates the scoring in action. Thesis A completely bombs, getting a dismal score of just 1 out of 10. Thesis B is a bit of a heartbreaker. It hits that magic 7, but it still fails because it lacks an ownership rung, giving it a fatal 0 in dimension 4. But Thesis C, it crushes it, achieving a perfect 10 out of 10 for intense, undeniable specificity.
As you start building out your own thesis, you've got to watch out for these common traps.
First, defaulting to that marketing tone. Always remember to swap out those fluffy adjectives for hard, action-oriented verbs. Second, listing your capabilities without proving them. You have to actually screen share your artifacts to back up what you're saying. And third, never try to hide your weakest persona behind corporate speak like, "Oh, I'm comfortable with ambiguity." Just own your gaps.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, the Mastery Studio process.
So how do you actually construct and test this thesis under pressure? You enter the 75-minute UDO Studio block. It is a highly structured, intense sprint. You spend 30 minutes scripting out your video by mapping out 5 specific spoken blocks. Next, you get just 10 minutes to record a single-take pitch with your camera on and your screen shared. And finally, you spend 35 minutes stepping into the shoes of the hiring manager to peer review 2 other videos.
Now, evaluating your peers is the real test of whether you can use this rubric as a true thinking tool. You review 2 videos, give those discrete 0, 1, or 2 scores, and here's the catch, you have to justify every single score with specific quotes and timestamps. Plus, you have to provide one concrete, kind, direct, no-fluff remediation action for any 0 you hand out.
This entire process culminates in what's known as the calibration moment. You sit down and compare your reviews with a co-reviewer. And if you disagree by 2 or more points on any dimension, lean into that. That disagreement is literally the most valuable feedback you can get. It highlights those tricky boundary cases and really sharpens your understanding of what true evidence actually looks like.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. I want you to evaluate your own professional positioning right this second. If you had to pitch yourself using this exact framework today, which dimension would you score the lowest on? And more importantly, what is the one specific change you're going to make to your operating frame before your next big interview or capstone? Because mastering your thesis is the ultimate precondition for standing out. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Now get out there and build your truth.